Hello student, in this video we will learn about the natural vegetation of India, social science for class 9 students. But before we go into detailed, let us learn what natural vegetation is. Natural vegetation refers to a plant community which has grown naturally without human help or aid and has been left untouched or undisturbed by humans for a long period of time. So those cultivated crops, vegetables, fruits, orchards form part of vegetation but not natural vegetation. Overview of the lesson. Life on earth is unimaginable without plants, because plant is the only source which have the ability to capture and use sun's light as an energy source. Plants grow in distinct groups of communities in areas having similar climatic conditions. Plants of particular region or period are called as flora, while fauna is the term used to imply species of animals of an area. Interdependence is a common part of life in an area where plants and animals coexist and interact with their physical environment. This is termed as ecosystem. Here, physical environment refers to temperature, rainfall, humidity, soil, and so on. Biome is a very large ecosystem on land which has vegetation and animals typical only to that region or area. Plant life in general with respect to geographical variation is called as vegetation. There are 5 main biomes in the world with subtypes depending mainly on the climate, soil, relief and drainage. Those 5 biomes of the world are forest, savanna, grassland, desert and tundra. Levels of organization. At the bottom, you can see several individual species form population. Population means all the inhabitants of a particular place. Next level, community, a group of organisms living in a particular area having particular characteristics in common. Next, ecosystem, a large community of living organisms in a particular area. Next to that we have is biome, a large naturally occurring community of flora and fauna occupying a major habitat, example like forest, desert and so on. At the top we have biosphere. Biosphere is that layer of the planet Earth where life exists. Here towards your left you can see the various type of biomes and its subtypes like the evergreen forest, grassland, mangrove, the tundra, alpine regions, desert areas and so on. And towards your right, with the difference in altitude and latitude, we have variation in vegetation. So towards the highest point and towards the pole region, we will see that the area is covered with rock, ice, snow, glaciers, and next to that we have the tundra region. Tundra is a vast treeless plain mainly found in the Arctic regions or between the ice cap and the tree lines. Next to that we have coniferous forest. Coniferous forest, in this kind of forest we will find plant which bear cones and have like needle shape like leaves. Next to that we have the deciduous forest. Deciduous forest shade their leaves during the dry season, and during the monsoon season, that is the wet season, they grow wild. And next to that we have the tropical forest. Tropical forests are those forests which remains green throughout the year. Natural vegetation of India. India's flora ranges from those that are found in the tropics to those found in the Arctic region. That is because try to visualize the Indian physical features. Towards the north we have the high mountain ranges, Himalayan mountain ranges, west desert areas. Next to the mountain ranges at a foothill we have the plain regions, next to that plateau regions, coastal and islands and so on. So with variation in the physical features, we have variation in flora in India. Most of the areas in the Himalayas and Peninsular India have indigenous flora. Indigenous flora refers to those homegrown, not exotic. Those native plants are known as the indigenous flora. Plant species introduced from other countries, around 40% of the total species in India are mainly confined to the North Indian plains and the Thar Desert of India. The natural vegetation of India has been greatly disturbed and dismantled due to various human activities in the name of development and with the increase in population. Here you will be able to see the distribution of the natural vegetation in India. The distribution of natural vegetation in India. We have main five types. The first one we have is the tropical rainforest. We will find towards the rainy parts of India, warm and wet regions. Forests are evergreen throughout the year with no particular season for shadings of leaves. Large number of species growing to great heights. Next level, tropical deciduous forest. Most abundant or widespread forest in India. They are known as the monsoon forest. It is being divided into two subtypes, that is moist deciduous and dry deciduous forest. Next, thorn forest or shrubs found in the arid or semi-arid regions of northwestern parts of India. Arid areas refers to those areas which receive very little rainfall or no rainfall. Low and open forest with short thorny trees and thorny bushes, shrubs and grasses in between. These are some of the characteristics of this forest. Next we have is a temperate forest with grassland in the Himalayas. We have three levels categories. The first one we have is the broadleaf evergreen varieties between 1000 meter to 2000 meter above sea level. Next to that we have the coniferous forest between 1500 meter to 3000 meters above sea level. Next to that, higher to that, we have the grasslands. The last category we have is the alpine and tundra vegetation above 3600 meters to higher altitudes. Characteristics are stunted growth of trees frequented by nomadic sheep grazers like bakarwals and the gujars. Nomadic or a nomad is referred to someone who lives by traveling from one place to another instead of living in one area or place. So this is the image how the bakarwals and the gujars carries their stuff along with their cattle, travel from one place to another with change in season in search of shelters and food. Conservations. Under conservation, the first point, why do we need to conserve? Depletion of the natural resources threatens our existence. Hence, the need of the hour is to take up systematic and planned strategies to tackle the problems and to preserve and conserve the natural vegetation of our country. Next, why do we need to preserve, and what are the steps or measures taken up by the government to conserve our natural resources? Specific laws to protect and conserve fragile habitats, especially the eco-sensitive zones. Eco-sensitive zones includes national parks, state forest, world heritage areas, endangered and concerned regional ecosystems, and some important wetland, or it also refers to within 10 kilometers around protected areas like that of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, and so on. Government acts and programs for conservation of special habitats have been implemented. Next, biosphere reserve to protect and conserve the biodiversity of India have come up in various parts of India. The last point, ecological conservation and environmental preservation can take place only through thoughtful understanding of the importance of preserving and conserving our natural heritage for the benefit of our continuance on the planet Earth. So what are natural heritage? Natural heritage refers to the natured gift, the gift of the nature, like the rivers, hills, mountains, seas, lakes, streams, wild areas, wild animals, vegetations, deserts, and so on. We have inherited from the past generations, so we need to maintain it in the present generation and bestowed it to the future generation. We need to conserve our natural heritage because it stabilized pollution, provides food both for animals and plants. It also provides aesthetic beauties and so on. So it is very important to preserve and conserve our natural heritage. But before we go to the next page, let us see the difference of conservation and preservation. Conservation means to reduce the usage of natural heritage or the natural resources, to use natural resources more efficiently, especially the non-renewable. Preservation means to protect or save natural resources in the present for the purpose of using them in the future. So you can see here how the forest or natural vegetation are being destroyed. We need to preserve it by adopting the concept of afforestation, that means planting of more trees to save our planet Earth. We need to check overgrazing. We need to check the growth of urban areas. So those are some few steps that we have to adopt it in order to preserve our national heritage. So to conclude our chapter, we will go through some important points. Biosphere is that portion of the earth and its environment occupied by various forms of life. Factors that influence the distribution of plants and animals on planet Earth are climate, soil, relief, and drainage. Conifers are cone-bearing plants, generally having needle-shaped leaves. Deciduous forests are forests that consist of trees that shade their leaves in the dry season or in winter. Snow-line refers to the low limit of perpetual snow. The snow above that line does not melt completely even in summer. Conservation is the management, protection, and wise use of natural resources. World Forest Day is celebrated on March 21st. Forest Conservation Act was enacted in 1980. Afforestation, check of urban growth, and check on grazing are some important ways to conserve the forest. So with this, we will end up. Thank you, students.